One of the things that's been so interesting is that conservatives are finally playing catch up when it comes to the K-12 education system. Now, to be clear, some of us were ahead of the curve. I used to do the Stop K-12 Indoctrination series on this channel before this was one of the number one topics in conservative media, so I deserve credit for being on point in terms of these issues, and also the people who came well before me who have been warning about the fact that if you allow these institutions to educate our kids in primarily left-wing values, you are essentially conceding the next generation, and while you might have temporary victories today, eventually those bills are going to come due, and you're going to have a more left-wing next generation, which is one of the things that we're seeing in this country. On top of that, a lot of these divisive political ideas, a lot of the racial hatred that the left is obsessed with introducing into the K-12 system manifest in actual grievances, actual violence, and this is what we're going to talk about. A story out of Springfield, Ohio, where a bunch of young kids, we're talking in a elementary school, decided that it would be a good idea to grab the white kids from their class, force them onto their knees, and demand that they pledge fealty to Black Lives Matter. And when some of these white kids did not want to do this, this turned into a racialized attack where the black students ended up beating up the white kids. Now, why do you think this happened? Why do you think this was the thing that they decided to attack them over? Obviously, it's because we have all of these different programs in this country that seek to introduce the Black Lives Matter ideology into our K-12 system, and this clearly and obviously villainizes white people. I mean, all you have to do is listen to these people talk for about 5 seconds to realize that they don't like white people. You can look at the assignments that they give to the schools to realize that they're anti-white, and these kids who take things in the most simplest way read through the lines and they lash out in this manner, which is again one of the reasons why fighting back against this political ideology in our K-12 education system makes so much sense.
New at 6, Springfield police are investigating a possible assault at an elementary school. This involved 2 groups of students. Good evening. I'm Cheryl McHenry.
And I'm James Brown. We have News Center 7's John Bedell. He's live in Springfield with details he's uncovered in a police report. And John, you also talked with one of the victim's parents.
James and Cheryl, we asked Springfield City Schools for a copy of the video showing what happened here at Kenwood Elementary. They refused, so I filed a formal public records request with the district for that footage this afternoon. Meantime, Mom and Dad tell me their son is traumatized.
Now, I have to give a lot of credit to the local news out in Ohio because a bunch of different news agencies actually picked up this story. They filed open records requests when the school decided to stonewall, and this was because the national media weirdly didn't have to pay any attention to this story. I mean, we can only ask ourselves this basic question, that if a bunch of white kids decided that it would be a good idea to force all of the black kids at the elementary school level onto their knees and beat them up if they didn't pledge allegiance to whiteness, what would have happened with the national media? But of course, this was a local story and they had to fight to obtain the information on this as a local story. Again, open records requests, demanding why the parents weren't being informed because the school didn't even think it was important to tell the parents that their kids were beat up at school due to a racialized hate crime. But yeah, so the local news gets credit for fighting back against it, but we do note the absence of the national media in this incident because their silence is quite deafening.
Ryan Springer and Ashley Henthorne told me they were upset they didn't find out about an incident at school on Friday until Monday. They said their son, a 6th grader at Kenwood Elementary, hasn't been the same since.
Again, absolutely amazing that their son gets physically assaulted, targeted for a racialized hate crime on the campus, on the playground of this school, and the school thinks, well, he's a white kid, no big deal, we don't need to talk about this, we don't even need to inform the parent, and anybody who's been through the public education system knows that the first thing that they do before they conduct any investigation is inform the parents that something like this happened, but the school administrators took it upon themselves to not do so because obviously they cared more about this story getting out rather than actually punishing the people who acted horribly.
A Springfield police incident report we got a hold of shows school staff told police they waited until Monday to report the incident to officers because they were still interviewing students involved.
So the incident happens at recess on a Friday, and the school officials wait until Monday to report it to the officers because they were still interviewing students, which again makes no sense at all because at the end of the school day Friday, their opportunity to interview students would have been done because the school does not have Saturday and Sunday sessions. So already I'm really weirded out by the way that the school is acting in this situation, because when you tell obvious lies about stuff that anybody who's ever seen how a Monday through Friday schedule works, which is the overwhelming majority of the people of this country, would know is a lie, that's a giant red flag, and it leads me to believe that they decided to not report this due to a cover-up, and maybe some of the parents found out over the weekend. They started calling the school Monday, so then on Monday they decided to file the report. Also the lack of transparency, the fact that they didn't want to turn over any information related to this incident, not talking about any names or anything like that, but you know how many students were involved, let's see some of the paperwork. All of that was kept under wraps, and it needed to be revealed via open records requests. Just a red flag. And by the way, if the school would have done this, if they would have acted in this way, let's say it's overall district policy and it's not specific to this instance, this would be a national fiasco and the school would be alleged to be catering to the white supremacist students. But instead, when you have black racist students who are likely taught these things in the K through 12 education system over in Ohio, that means no big deal. Don't worry about it. We're just going to cover it up. We're never going to report it to our on-campus security. And, whatever. If it happens again, totally fine.
The report says it happened on the playground during recess when a group of black students had gathered several white students to a specific spot on the playground and forced them to say Black Lives Matter against their will, with some kids recording this. Police wrote the principal here told officers a few students who tried avoiding the situation were chased down and either escorted, dragged, or carried to the spot on the playground. Officers said one student was punched in the head.
Now, another thing that we need to know, because it is the month of February is Black History Month, is what were these kids being taught in their classroom before they went out to recess? Because I'm not against teaching the history of black people in the United States of America, not against talking about slavery and all of that, but Black Lives Matter is a modern political movement that is still ongoing, that is based on their misrepresentations of police data and crime data. So why specifically in Black History Month in the middle of February at recess did these kids demand fealty to Black Lives Matter? Obviously, because I've seen these curriculums before, I would be inclined to believe that the Black Lives Matter curriculum actually took hold and took root instead of a standard Black History Month curriculum, which talks about the history of the civil rights movement and all of that. And that's what got these kids so agitated, because remember, these Black Lives Matter thinkers do not hide the ball on what they think of white people. They think they're all evil. You are consciously and unconsciously backing racism. You are for the subordination of black kids. So obviously, in response to that, it makes perfect sense, especially if you're a child and you don't know any better, you never hear the other side of the issue, to think, because all white people have this in their mind, that you need to lash out against those white people and punish them for the sins of hating you based on the color of your skin. Insanely, this school taught these black kids to hate white kids based on the color of their skin because of the thinkers and the indoctrination that white kids inherently hate them based on the color of their skin.
There are no formal charges right now, but the incident report lists an investigation into offenses of possible assault and menacing, something Springer said his 12-year-old should not have to experience.
Look, I'm a big fan of the word allegedly. I think it is totally fine to say the word allegedly. However, possible assault makes me laugh because obviously there was an assault in this situation, and possible menacing also makes me laugh because the kids that reportedly did not want to pledge fealty to this left-wing political organization that has infiltrated this school were menaced, they were attacked, they were dragged over there, they were physically assaulted, and all of this undoubtedly did happen. So I agree with we should talk about it in terms of alleged because there's no conviction, but the idea that it's possible and maybe it didn't happen seems a bit absurd, because why would this be made up whole cloth when everybody kind of acknowledges this happened?
I'm more upset of the assault part of it, of the children being forced down on the ground by other children and stuff. Not so much of them making them say BLM, because, all lives do matter.
So look, this parent, one of his kids were assaulted, and he says, look, it's the assault that bothers me. It's the actual crime committed in my kids that annoys me. Not so much the fact that they wanted them to say BLM because all lives matter. But the thing is, what he just said would have got him an assault or his kid an assault had they said it to these people, because in these lessons, they're taught that all lives matter is an evil white racist code word. On top of that, this was the motivation for the assault. This was the racial hatred. And I'm so tired of this Mott and Bailey tactic where people say, oh, do you support Black Lives Matter? Which obviously means the overall movement. And somebody says no. And then they're like, oh, so you're saying that Black lives don't matter, that your life somehow doesn't matter if you're Black in the United States of America. And obviously that is not what is being put forward. That is not what is being said. That's not all that's being said. There's an overall additional context that goes into this organization, this movement, this idea that we should be against, because it's not rooted in fact. It's actually rooted in racist dogma.
The school staff should have recognized the behavior and the problem before it got that far.
Mom says she noticed their son hasn't been himself since Friday.
Yeah, her son wasn't himself since Friday, because what happened was he was in a classroom. There was racial indoctrination in the classroom that essentially painted him, based on the color of his skin, probably the first time ever this happened to him, as the bad guy, as the evil white racist. Then he was racially attacked by students likely he thought were his friends, some of them, all based on the political ideology that was introduced to these students by careless administrators or administrators with bad intent who wanted to create activists. And of course, this is the logical result. The thing about children is that they take things quite directly and quite literally. So while people like to hide behind and do these intellectual dances about how this isn't about hating white people or anything like that, in reality, kids see through that. They see it at its most base level, and they understand when you say that all the problems that these Black kids face are due to white people and all white people are responsible, they decide to take revenge and fight against them. So that's what happened in this classroom. It's no coincidence that it's Black History Month. That was taken out to the playground, and the fact that the school decided to cover it up and the parents had to deal with their kid who was just victimized by a hate crime by definition is absurd and is insane.
Then I kept asking him all weekend, are you okay? And he kept saying, yeah, I'm just tired. And then when I got the phone call Monday about it, I was like, that explained a lot.
We reached out to Springfield City Schools for comment today. They declined, saying this is a Springfield police matter. Springfield PD told us they're still investigating what happened here, and they'll work with prosecutors to review possible formal charges.
Now look, overall, we shouldn't be surprised by this. When you start introducing the anti-white Black Lives Matter curriculum into our K-12 education system, obviously unsophisticated kids, and by the way, it's not even the issue of them being unsophisticated, it's that the ideology is inherently anti-white and is trying to stir up anti-white hatred, are going to take it to the extreme, and this is what we saw on display. We've seen this before. There was an incident in Florida where a bunch of middle schoolers decided to jump the white students in that school, and they were screaming brown power while they were doing it, because again, we're indoctrinating these kids with these racialized beliefs. We're teaching them racial hatred and hoping it all works out and hoping that white people just take it on the chin and white kids take it on the chin, because we all know that they're evil white racist children. How dare they not want to be dragged across the playground and pledge fealty on their knees to a left-wing ideology. And of course, this is what Black Lives Matter, the overall organization, does. They endorse looting, rioting, destruction, all manner of violence because, long history of racism. So it's unsurprising to see that the distilled for children version has the same result. But obviously, this should be taken incredibly seriously. Obviously, we should see some severe consequences like we would see had the races been reversed. But I doubt that it's actually going to come to that. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the racial attack in an Ohio elementary school. Till next time.